Hello, Mr. Partez. This is Evan Schoenberger teaching graphing trig functions, and today we're going to be doing sine and cosine. So sine and cosine have 5 points on their graphs. And what is the distance between the points? You have amplitude, which is the absolute value of the highest and lowest points, and then period, how long the graph takes to cycle. So here we just have the basic sine and cosine graphs, where sine starts at 0, and then at pi over 2 it goes up to 1, and then at pi it's at 0. Then at 3 pi over 2 it is at -1, and then 2 pi it is back up to 1. The distance between each point on your graph is going to be 90 degrees, or pi over 2. So for this one, the amplitude is 1 and the period is 2 pi. And then for the cosine graph, we are going to be starting up here at 1 at 0, 0, and then at 2 pi it is going to be at 0, and then pi it is going to go down to -1, and then 3 pi over 2 it is back up to 0, and then 2 pi it goes up to 1. And then for this one it is also going to be 90 degrees in between each point, or pi over 2, and the amplitude for this one is 1 and the period is 2 pi. Next, we're going to be doing examples of sine with shifts and stretches. So for this one, we have a stretch, and the equation is f of x equals sine 1/2 x. So for this one, the amplitude is going to be 1, and the period is going to be 4 pi. So for this one, we are still starting at 0, 0. And then our next point is going to be at pi, but it's up at 1. And the next point is 2 pi at 0, then 3 pi at -1, and 4 pi at 0. The distance between points here is 180 degrees, or pi. Then we're going over here where it is a shift, and we have f of x equals sine x minus pi. Here the amplitude is 1 and the period is 2 pi. For this one, instead of starting at 0, 0, we are going to be starting at pi, which is at 0. So first point is at 0 pi. Then our next point is going to be at 3 pi over 2, and it is going to be up at 1. Then our next point is at 2 pi, which is at 0. Then 5 pi over 2 at -1, and then 3 pi at 0. Next, we have examples of cosine with shifts and stretches. First, we have a stretch. So we have f of x equals cosine 1/2 x. Our amplitude is 1 and our period is 4 pi. Our starting point is going to be up here at 1. And then we are going to go 180 degrees, and our next point is going to be at pi 0. Then at 2 pi it's going to be at -1, then 3 pi at 0, and then 4 pi at 1. Distance between points here is going to be 180 degrees, or pi. Then we have a shift, and our equation is f of x equals cosine x equals x minus pi, Then our amplitude is 1 and our period is 2 pi. Instead of starting here at 1, we're going to start here at pi at 1, and then next point is going to be 3 pi over 2 at 0. Then at 2 pi it is going to be at -1, and then 5 pi over 2 at 0, and then our last point is going to be at 3 pi up at 1. There is graphing trig functions, sine and cosine.